There, folks. Vegas Trader 66 coming at you from AlphaWolfTrading.com with this week's market wrap and sector watch. And the good news is I don't have to sound like a broken record anymore. We've been in a very tight consolidation range for an extended period of time, basically going back almost an entire month, a little over a month actually. And we really didn't have any indication that we needed to change our thesis and that the Bulls could remain in control if they wanted to. And that all changed today. So, one day does not make a trend. However, after a big consolidation, it's interesting because earlier the week on the blog, I had posted, look, we've built such a big base that we're either going to have one heck of an explosive pop to the upside or we're going to fall off a cliff. And today we fell off a cliff. There literally was no place to hide. And all week long for the pro members over at Alpha Wolf Trading, there were a couple of things that happened during the week that gave me pause and did make me concerned about potentially taking any swing positions. And I'll highlight those things here in a little bit. But let's just take a look at what happened in the markets today. So, NASDAQ had a pretty hard pull. I mean, we sold off hard into the close, and that does not really send a very good signal for what could come on Monday. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't get a gap down and then some kind of a grind up reversal. But I will say this, I don't think that this selling pressure is done here. We could see some, look, the bears have been sitting on the sidelines for quite a while. A lot of talk about there's no companies out there that have a reasonable valuation. So listen, they're going to be, we'll see how emboldened they are next week. But, the bears could really take hold and try to run with this after this huge base that we've made. So NASDAQ is, on Monday, we're coming up to this area of potential price support. But it really looks to me as though, if we take out this support here, we're likely going to come down and do a 5,000 test, right? Where we had a difficult time getting through there previously. And if we break through 5,000, then we come down in the next area of potential support. It could be somewhere around this 200-day moving average. So when I say there was no place to hide, I mean there was no place to hide. If you were a gold bug and you thought, gee, that nuclear test in North Korea was going to be something that, would give us a flight to safety and head to gold, we didn't get that today, right? Gold nearly closed at the low of the day as well. Gold miners, GDX, GDXJ, JNUG, Nugget, all had fairly significant pullbacks today. Okay, and part of that also had to do, Mario Draghi spoke this week, and wasn't really talking up a big monetary, stimulus package or anything to that effect. I don't think the market's really like that. And then today we capped it off with few of our own Fed members kind of indicating that, the market is underestimating the fact that they could potentially raise in September or December, but it could be coming sooner than people think. So now the rate hike increase is back on the table for September. The Fed, they're either clueless or they're geniuses. I'm not really sure. I'm leaning more towards clueless, but all they have to do is jawbone. And it seems as though, you know, the market reacts to just them jawboning about raising the rate, right? They get the desired effect of raising the rate just by talking about it. So, listen, if they do not raise rates at, I think it's the third week in September, if they don't raise the rates, then we could, you know, who knows what's going to happen, actually. I mean, you know, they could lose or confirm that they have lost all credibility whatsoever, or the markets could, you know, love the fact that they don't raise and we get a nice little spike heading up into December where they may raise the rate there, and then, you know, we have a replay of what we saw at the beginning of this year. So we'll see what happens, but you know, gold and miners were not a place to go hide, even though you would think that could have been a good safety trade option. Silver pulled back. So one of the things that I pointed out to the Alpha Pro members this week was, and what gave me pause about the markets in general was, number one, the SMH. The SMH, which has been, you know, on a tear. It's been the strongest sector out there. And it started to give us signs that it was getting tired, right? And on this day here, we closed below the 8 EMA, and it looked as though we were starting to curl down. And that was concerning to me, that if we lost the SMH, that could carry over into the rest of the market, right? And that being one of the strongest sectors, that was a little bit concerning to me. So let's take a look at the S&P 500. You know, big slice today, right down to the 100 EMA, looking for potential price support between 212, right, and 210, right in that area. If it doesn't hold, right, if we break below 2100, right, where there is some potential price support there, see all this congestion, we had some resistance, and now maybe this acts as support. If this doesn't act as support and we slice right through it, we're likely going down to test the 200-day moving average, and that, you know, could be problematic, right? We'll see. Like I said, one day doesn't make a trend, but we'll see how much follow through we get on this move next week. The other thing that was really concerning to me that I pointed out to the pro members is this. We had 3 days completely out of the lower Bollinger Band on the VIX. Okay? And this was a big concern to me, because if you look back, there were very rarely any times when you saw the VIX completely out of the lower Bollinger Band for an extended period of time. So we had, you know, we pierced the Bollinger Band here, and then boom, we got a big spike in the VIX, right? The volatility. You know, fast forward to where we were this week, and this was a big warning flag to me. Okay? So one of the things that I told the pro members to keep a very close eye on was volatility, UVXY and TVIX. Those happen to be huge movers today, and could potentially continue that move. I mean, once fear starts to take hold in the marketplace, those things can really rip. TVIX and UVXY can really, really rip if there is a substantial amount of fear in the market. So we'll see if that continues. Let's see what else we've got going on here. Okay, so the other thing that happened this week, because the Fed is jawboning the fact that they are looking to potentially raise the rates, the dollar caught a little bit of strength. So yesterday we were kind of bumping up into this short-term trend. We broke over that, we gapped above it, not on huge, tremendous volume. So there's not like a tremendous amount of conviction behind the dollar strength. As a matter of fact, it actually closed in the lower portion of this candle today, but we did manage to have a little gap up and a little pop, and that could explain why we also had that pullback in gold, silver, and the miners. Right? We also had a pullback in the utilities, which that is because of the fact that the Fed could be looking at raising the rate. And these are dividend plays, and those things typically get hit in a rising rate environment. So you got to pull back in utilities as well today, coming up to the 200-day moving average in a short-term downtrend, and has broken this longer-term uptrend. So that is a little bit concerning for utilities. All right, let's take a look at, like I said, there was no place to hide today. Retail, short-term downward trend, accelerated sell-off today, coming up to potential support right here, price support right around 43 bucks. If it breaks below 43, I think that becomes problematic. And what's most disturbing about the XRT is it is below its dominant trend line, right? If you back it out to the weekly, it broke below back here, tried to reclaim, came back down, came back up, looked like it was going to try and maybe bust back over, and now we're breaking lower again. And this is kind of looking like maybe on the weekly time frame a little bit of a double top, right? That could be a double top that we're looking at right there. So a little bit concerning for retail. We'll get to transportation in a second. We had a pretty nice pop in oil this week, and then we gave it all back, or we didn't give it all back, but we gave it some back today. We didn't get a lot of follow through in oil. Got out of the upper Bollinger Band. This is oil exploration and production. Got out of the upper Bollinger Band, coming up into resistance right around 40 bucks, 39.55 or so. Was unable to break through. Now we're pulling back. Where could we pull back to? Where we might find some support? Could be down here in this 33.50 range, $34 range, somewhere in that area. XME. So there's another example of a long-term trend line being broken. Right? Came back up, tried to bust back above, and failed. Now we're pulling back to an area of potential price support here at 24.50, right around that area. If that breaks down, then likely we're coming down to test somewhere around 22.50, or potentially all the way down to this 200-day moving average. Consumer discretionary was consolidating between these two areas of resistance and support between 82 and 80 bucks. Clearly broke through that without any hesitation today, and closed nearly right at the low of the day. Looks like we're going to come test this 200-day moving average. If that doesn't hold as support, maybe we find some support somewhere around here, around $77 or so. See if that holds as potential price support. If not, where could we pull back to? Well, you could come all the way back down to here, right? You could test this trend line right here. So consumer discretionary is somewhat concerning. Healthcare, Mylan, or what was it, Mylan? Yeah, Mylan started all this with the EpiPen. IBB and healthcare both look very similar. You know, I was pointing out to the Alpha Wolf members that we wanted to see this area 72 hold as potential price support. That failed today on significant volume. Broke through this price support. Now it does look as though we will potentially come down here and test this 200-day moving average, test $70, which is a nice round number. See if that holds as price support. If it doesn't, then it looks like we break this trend line and things could get even more ugly for the healthcare sector. Industrials, pretty significant pull to potential price support right about $57, where we have a lot of congestion here. If it takes out 57, then likely heading potentially down to test this 200-day moving average right around $55 or so. Financials. Okay, rising rate environment should be good for the financials. Well, apparently not, because financials got hit today. That stuff with Wells Fargo did not help. Laying off 5,300 people because they were scamming their customers, which was pretty crappy. But XLF not looking real impressive on a day where it probably should have, right? So I think need to be a bit cautious in the financials. Energy, pulling back along with oil. This is, kind of sad. This had such a beautiful setup going on. If it could have broke the other way, that would have been pretty sweet. But materials sector, broke below this longer term trend line here, sitting right on top of the 100 EMA. If it breaks below that 100 EMA, I think we come down and potentially test this 200-day, maybe find some price support right around 45 and change. We're going to get to volatility in a second here. Home builders. So one of the things that I was talking to the pro members about this week is the fact that if rates do rise, that wouldn't necessarily be great for the home builders. And it's, there have been some home builders that have made some really nice moves, but we are coming up into the winter season. This is not the best season we're coming up into for selling homes. And now you throw on that, on top of that, we may be raising interest rates. That could put some more pressure on the home builders. So you saw a pretty steep decline in the home builders. Could we find some support somewhere here in the 33.50 area at the 200-day? Possibly. We'll see if that acts as support or if we wind up taking that out next week. We'll go to biotech and the IBB in a minute. Aerospace and defense. So this is kind of interesting. You had this event in North Korea. You would have thought maybe that would be some kind of a catalyst for aerospace and defense, and actually had a pretty big sell-off there as well, coming down and testing this longer-term trend line here. See if that acts as support or if it winds up taking that out. So let's take a look at UVXY. So UVXY had a beautiful bounce, strong all day long on massive volume, coming up into potential price resistance. We may gap up on Monday. I mean, close right at the high of the day. Where could UVXY go? I mean, UVXY could come all the way up and test this 2960 area, right? Come up and test the 50 EMA. If fear really starts to come in, this thing can really start to move. Let's take a look at TVIX real quick. Same thing, close right at the high of the day, coming up into potential price resistance, $25. Where can TVIX go? This is 2 times. Now this is, not for the faint of heart. TIVX can be a big time pop and flopper, so you don't want to chase this thing, but look for an intraday setup, and I really wouldn't hold it overnight either, unless you've got a really sweet lotto play. I mean, if you make a good clip, you've scaled out, take some profit, and you want to just hold some lottos to see if it continues to run, that is entirely up to you. Just make sure your risk is appropriate. So I'm gonna hit, since I'm here, I'm gonna hit this TZA coming up into price resistance right here, right? Acted as support, acted as resistance, 29.50. If it breaks through, it's gonna probably find a little resistance at 30.53 or so. It does have these moving averages above. But if small caps really continue to break down, TZA could be the play. So keep an eye on TZA. Let me go up and take a look at IWM. So close right at the low of the day, right at potential price support, 121, and the 50 EMA. If we take out that 50 EMA, we may find some support somewhere around this 119, 118 area. If that fails, likely going to come down and test this trend line here, right? And that would be somewhere around 115, 116 in that price range. If that breaks down, we're next stop is coming down and testing the 200-day moving average. Pretty big volume today in that IWM sell-off. IYT, let's take a look at that. Transportation, we were getting some nice action in the airlines, and boom, it broke out over a little area of price resistance. However, we were coming up into another area of potential price resistance at this 146. We're unable to break through there. Pierced the upper Bollinger Band, pulled back pretty hard today. So transportation, another area that's not looking all that great, right? But listen, could we have a bounce next week? We could absolutely have a rip your face off bounce. It could happen. I would suggest that those bounces should be bought with the intent that you're only going to play it for a short period of time, okay? Until we get some clarity on this Fed thing. We'll see what happens with the Fed and whether or not they actually really do raise the rates in September. So IWM, looking for it to potentially have some support right here around 118, 119. If that fails, look to potentially come down and test in the 115 area, 112. And then IBB. So, we had this nice little 3-day rally. It looked as though maybe we were going to start to march back up towards that 299. But as I told the members at Alpha Wolf Trading, that this still looked like a bear flag, right? I mean, this is not a healthy looking chart. So we did manage to close back below the 200-day moving average. Looking for this area around 273, 272 to hold as potential price support. If it does not, we are likely coming back down to test this 263 area and potentially test this long-term trend line. Back this out to the weekly. Likely going to come down and maybe test this long-term trend line. And if we lose the long-term trend line, we lose the 200-week moving average, things get really problematic for the IBB. Another thing that just take a quick peek at, but the high yield had a pretty big hit today, right? Pulling right back to this trend line. see if this acts as support or if we actually break down below it. But listen, when I said there was no place to hide today, there was no place to hide unless you were playing TVIX, UVXY, SPXS, which is kind of what we were focused on in the chat room today, right? This SPXS, if the S&P 500 continues to break down, this could be a nice opportunity for a short-term trade. It is the 3-time bear of the S&P 500. So, look, these are very volatile, can be very volatile, but they can make some pretty tremendous moves when there is some real fear in the market. So, look, the bulls are definitely not in control. The bears have the opportunity to really take the reins. Doesn't mean that we can't have a short-term snapback rally. We could. I can assure you I have not done any scans of stocks to watch for next week at all. I can assure you that there were a bunch of good-looking chart setups that have been ruined after today. Okay, one thing that I will suggest is that, you know, when you have sell-offs like this, you look for stocks that showed relative strength and bucked the trend. Those typically are pretty strong stocks, right? And could get some continued follow through. The other thing that you want to do in a market like this, you know, it's interesting, and I said it in the chat room today. Listen, it doesn't matter how good the company is. It doesn't matter what the balance sheet looks like. It doesn't matter if there's been a significant amount of insider buying recently. It doesn't matter if the company announced that they're going to do a share buyback program. It doesn't matter if the company just got an upgrade from some analyst. If the market really rolls over, if fear comes in, everything, 90% of stocks are going to follow the overall market. You know, the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. Good companies get beaten up, and stock prices suffer because of the overall market, not because of anything specific to the company. What does that do? That creates opportunity for value investors. Now, I'm not suggesting that next week, you know, you go out and you start buying stocks because you think they're value, you know, it's a value play. Listen, things can get really, really cheap when people are scared, okay? They can get really, really cheap when people are scared. This was the first day of a break. It's coming off of a very long base, and it could be a significant decline. We'll see. You know, we'll see. We have to see how it plays out. Monday will give us a good indication. You know, it's difficult to press shorts after you have such a big decline. But right now, the bears have every opportunity to take control, and there is an opportunity to take advantage of that. So, you know, LABD, JDust and Dust, SPXS, UVXY, TVIX, those are things to keep on your radar for next week. I will, listen, it's a big weekend for me. I'm not going to tell anybody why, but it's a big weekend for me. I've got the UFC fight, got a party happening here on Saturday, and then Sunday is, you know, the first day of football. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing stocks to watch live on Ticker TV this week. I have not decided. If I do, I will make sure to post everybody on Sunday morning. If I don't, I'll maybe try to do a recorded version of it. Okay? So listen, if you like what you see here and you are really interested in learning more about how I go about the markets. If you're passionate about the stock market and trading, and as passionate as I am, then you need to come and check out alphawolftrading.com. I've got an unbelievable, comprehensive educational program for people that do have the passion and want to improve their trading results. Go to alphawolftrading.com, check it out. There's also a monthly membership if you're a little skeptical. But listen, I have a passion for the stock market, but I also have a passion for trying to help people become better, more consistent, profitable traders. And that is the goal. So, all right, people, have a wonderful weekend. Yay, football. And hopefully I'll either see you Sunday morning on Ticker TV. If not, I'll just see you all next week. Okay?